Sight Loss Sunday 2021. A reflection from Dr. Mike Townsend.
Hello, it's good to be with you. Welcome to Sight Loss Sunday. And we're going to be thinking a bit about sight loss and sight from a Christian point of view. Now, who am I? Well, my name's Mike Townsend, Dr. Mike Townsend actually. And I lost my sight at the age of 8. I found Jesus when I was just leaving school at the age of about 18, 19. And I'm the chair of Torch Trust. We're going to be thinking about sight from a Christian point of view today. First of all, we'll be looking at sight loss, and then spiritual sight, and then what I call saving sight. So, what is sight loss? I'm totally blind. A youngster the other day said to me, "Hey mister, do you just see black?" Well, I don't actually, because even though I lost my sight when I was 8 many years ago, my memory builds up pictures. However, not everybody has lost their sight who calls himself blind completely. There's partial sight, and I have a friend who in the morning can see quite well, in fact see enough to drive his car to work. But in the evening he folds his white cane up and someone else drives him home because his sight diminishes during the day. So sight loss isn't just on and off, it's a variable. And you can't always tell what people will be able to see. It depends on lighting and what's going on. Now, come with me to Syria. The army sent to hunt down the prophet Elisha. They were there looking for him because the Syrian king, Ben-Hadad, was very upset that Elisha seemed to know his every movement. But how did Elisha know? Because God told him. But anyway, they sent him out secretly at night. The army went and they actually found Elisha. But what happened then? They were struck with blindness. They were struck with not understanding what they were seeing. They'd lost the normal understanding of everyday events. Elisha told the army, "This is not the road and this is not the city. Follow me and I will lead you to the man that you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. And then he opened their eyes, and what a shock. They found Elisha. What a surprise. They were in Samaria, the capital city of their enemy country, and they hadn't even realized they'd gone there. So sight loss and sight understanding is all about the brain as well as the eyes. I remember when I was going to Morton Hampton many years ago in Devon, and well, the roads are quite narrow there, and it was very thick fog. And the driver said, "Mike, I can't see where I'm going." And so I said, "Okay, John, I'll get out in the front and I'll walk with my guide dog." And so we went through those narrow lanes, through the fog, and they followed me and my guide dog, and we eventually got to the right place. So sight is quite a mixed thing. But the second thing is thinking about is spiritual sight. You know, God sees everything. And spiritual understanding enhances sight. In 1 Corinthians 2, we read this: "The man without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually discerned." Come back with me to that Syrian army, but we're going to the beginning of the story that we heard earlier, to Dothan. And Elisha's servant gets up in the morning and he's horrified because overnight the Syrian army had come and they were surrounded by the enemy. But Elisha wasn't worried. He said, "Don't be afraid." The prophet answered, "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes that he may see." And then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. You know, God can show us spiritually the way, and he is at work. I was in London one July morning, and I'd been at a breakfast meeting, and I went out and I crossed this road. It was very difficult and there was not a soul about. And then I heard this explosion, bang, behind me. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, my dog, instead of going where we should have gone straight on, he went right and left. And I said, "Oh no, Tom, we're lost." But eventually we got to where I was supposed to go to. And it turned out that I had just escaped from the last of the London bombs, which was the bus bomb that killed 17 people. It blew up just behind me. But I had no idea how Tom found that way. But I was doing an anniversary service, 10 years ago it was actually, on a cruise ship with 1,000 people. And we were remembering those lost in the 9/11. And afterwards, I told this story, and afterwards this man came up to me and said, "Do you know what? Even though guide dogs said that it was impossible for your dog to do what he did, do you think God guided you? Do you think God showed you that way, that whole new way through London?" I should have thought of that, shouldn't I? Because God does give us more than sight. He can guide us through life. But it's really important that blind and partially sighted people, that we're all part of enjoying the Christian life and God's spiritual guidance. And the welcome in church with Sight Loss Sunday, the welcome is really important. I went to a church once and I was going in and I heard, "Hello, gorgeous, would you like a drink?" I wasn't the gorgeous and it wasn't me that got the drink, but I was welcomed into that church and they had a space for my guide dog and they even had some Braille books. So that was a really good welcome. And they actually showed me around the coffee and I met lots of good friends that day. Do make sure that we welcome people. So many people do not talk to disabled people. Scope did a survey and they said that 77% of people do not talk to disabled people because they don't know the language, what language to use. Now, don't worry. Okay, we might get a bit shirty sometimes and we're human beings, but don't worry about the language. I do talk about seeing television and things like that. But the most important thing is that we welcome people and talk with them. Because the third thing I want to talk about today is saving sight. Come with me to the Jericho Road. And we read the passage earlier, and there was Bartimaeus, a blind man, sitting by the road begging. And he heard that Jesus was around and he got very excited. And I need to ask you a question. Is Jesus good news for blind people? I was in India having breakfast one day, as you do, in Delhi actually, and this American came up to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to introduce myself to you, and do you know what? I can heal you through God of your blindness." And I was shocked and I nearly choked on my chapati. And he said, "Yeah, I can heal you of your blindness." And I said to him, "Well, do you think that that's the most important thing for me, to get healed? You've come all the way to India. Have you come to heal people, or have you come to share Jesus?" And if you notice that Bartimaeus met with Jesus, and Jesus actually asked him what he wanted him to do. Well, he did want his sight healed, but also he ended up following Jesus. And you know, the most important thing for everybody, that includes blind and partially sighted people, the most important thing is that we know God. We have a relationship with God. It's not cures or anything like that. It's a relationship with God. There's not another gospel for blind people. As Paul says, he preaches the same gospel. And that's why Torch is here. We're here to smooth that journey, help you with practical things like large print and Braille and how to guide people. And there's a whole system of sight loss friendly church that you can key into. But we're not just dependent. You might look at me and I might look very dependent, and blind people might look very dependent. But actually, I lost my sight at 8, and I lead a very full life. I visited 130 countries, led large organizations. In fact, I lead a church too. I'm a church leader. We are all interdependent. God has designed us to be together people. And so it'd be great if you could partner with us in Torch to help everybody, including blind and partially sighted people, to enjoy God, enjoy Jesus together. We all need Jesus, you and me. Amen.